south of Scruffy.
Hello, 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 hello.
How's that?
Yeah, that's good.
Is that better?
Yeah, it's much better.
I mix it all right here. Well, I don't mix it here. I record it here, and then we give Sam a feed.
Thank you, Sam.
How do we sound, Sam?
You sound fantastic.
Do we?
Beautiful. Are we going to just dive right in?
Well, yeah. Like I've known about you for a long time, and I've been, I've seen you out, seen your stuff, and it was until our mutual buddy Garrett Sale mentioned your name and said I should have you over, and I said that's a no-brainer. You know that guy? He's like, yeah, I do. We should make it happen. So I'm glad you're here.
Thanks, ma'am.
And what's the story these days with Cereus Bright? And I know it's changed a lot for a lot of people in the last year or so.
Yeah.
Has it changed for you?
It definitely has. And thanks for having me on. I love this, and I love that you guys are shining some light on the Knoxville crew and all the people.
Man.
Yeah, Cereus Bright has gone through a lot of different iterations. I don't know what version we are on right now. Maybe Cereus Bright 5.0.
I like it.
And when I say we, I now mean me.
Really?
Yeah, I grew up writing songs just kind of behind the piano. And it wasn't until sometime after college that I started playing out in Knoxville because I didn't really have anything else to do. The kind of classic existential void of post-college that happens. What better thing to do than to be another white guy pretending to be Mumford and Sons? And that's what I did. Picked up the folk pop mantle that I had no excuse wearing, and gave it a go.
Did you do it because you knew it would sell, or did you do it because you really liked it, or both?
No, that's a good question. I make fun of myself because the kind of Lumineers Mumford wave that has probably crashed by now was what it was, kind of my bridge into music. I grew up pretty religious, love you mom and dad, but the only music that really played in our house was positive, encouraging K-Love in Memphis, Tennessee. A lot of Christian music, and I didn't get a lot of exposure to different kinds, particularly stuff that felt maybe less, I don't know what the word would be, maybe less refined, less commercial. So I kind of considered myself not musical for so long. Although I played it and loved it, I didn't really think I had a good voice. I didn't really think that it was anything that had, I'll say potential, but...
Because it wasn't the stuff that sounded like Christian radio?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
Like my Michael Jordan stories that I did make my high school a cappella group.
Yeah.
Hashtag my Michael Jordan story. What is this documentary that just came out?
Not The Last Dance.
Yeah, The Last Dance.
Is that what it's called? Yeah.
My Last Dance. No. No, and all that was fine. I didn't think I had a good voice, and I didn't think any kind of all my versions of kind of professional musicality was always at a distance, and anything else was kind of very refined and very choral, and the kind of sensibility, and maybe even a little pop, and so, that just wasn't really my sensibility, although I didn't have the vocabulary for that then, and it wasn't until I would say the end of college that I kind of bumped into the Avett Brothers and then the Head and the Heart, and then Mumford and Sons. I won't give you my hipster I heard them before they were big story, although I'll reference it. And I think I just felt excited, and it didn't feel tactical, and maybe the way I was joking.
Well, when was that? 2010, 2011, 2012?
Yeah. 20, right around there, kind of at the exit of college, which was 2011, 2012 for me. And I kind of exited into Knoxville, thinking that I was going to go into actually ministry and work for the church. And then some things kind of imploded for me, and I didn't really have a plan B. And so I was working at a coffee shop, Remedy, when it was back on, I guess, Jackson. and also working at Cafe 4.
So when you were at Remedy, probably right around that time, there was a production company upstairs called Tantrum Pictures. A dude named Michael Underwood, and Matt Robbins was working the working Remedy downstairs. That might be why you look familiar, because
Probably.
Remedy was a great place because it had good coffee and somebody who remembered your name every time you went in there.
That was Matt. Matt.
But it also had a church tie too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Was that part of the reason that you got into that world?
No, but it was probably just a path of least resistance, where like coffee is kind of the next thing over from the church.
They created both there, Knox Life and Remedy, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Met in the back room.
Yeah, so I actually wasn't even a part of all that, but it was more just kind of the you don't really know what else to do, and kind of simultaneously I was interacting with some, kind of quote unquote folkier bands that I heard kind of maybe a vocal style or a kind of song that I was like, oh, actually I could sing like that, or I do sing like that, or I could write like that felt a little more accessible.
Yeah. And
so I started writing some songs, and I don't know if it's worth going through the whole thing,
sure.
But I had a girlfriend and she sang in it, and then we broke up, and then
she sang in the band. Yeah.
And then recruited some other people kind of in her absence, and one of those guys was a really good fit. His name's Evan Ford, and we really kind of took the next steps forward together for a couple years, and then we recruited some other Knoxville guys. And I would say the probably version of Cereus Bright that Knoxville knows the best, quote unquote, would probably be the five of us: me, Evan, Luke Bowers on drums, Matt Nelson on bass, and Jake Smith playing electric guitar. And yeah, we played and toured. That kind of group of five was probably the most, active.
Is that 3.0?
That's probably 3.0.
Yeah.
Man, gotta love 3.0.
So that's pretty quick though, because did your first EP? I was looking around doing a little research. Your first EP, first EP was 2013, right?
Yeah. So that was pretty much Evan and I.
Okay.
So we recorded that before any of those guys.
Gotcha. It was 1.0.
That was 1.0.
Okay. So,
well, maybe 2.0.
Okay. Girlfriend was gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Gotcha. But that's still pretty quick because you said you started doing it in 11 or 12. So the fact that you guys were already in 2013 putting stuff out.
Yeah. The irony is that Cereus Bright, the kind of namesake, was arguably the first guitar song I ever wrote.
That was the name of it?
Mm-hmm. And it felt special enough. I probably dinked around and wrote some other stuff. I had grown up playing the piano, and then when I was playing worship music with my churches and stuff, I was starting to learn the guitar. And very simple. To this day, I'm not a great guitar player. Very passable. But I kind of wrote that song Cereus Bright, and it felt special and felt like something else, and kind of anchored the name to that song.
Yeah.
So I always dreamed of, actually not anymore, but having a self-titled album in which I can put the song Cereus Bright on, and then have the band Cereus Bright. So it was just Cereus Bright, Cereus Bright, Cereus Bright.
I think Bad Company did that.
Damn it. All right, not worth it. Scratch.
So you grew up in Memphis, you said?
Yeah.
Is that right?
I did.
The whole time? Till
yeah.
college?
Yeah, and then I went to it was a very different world for me, very college preparatory. I went to all boys schools my whole time.
Elementary school, all that?
Yeah.
Brothers and sisters?
Uh-huh. I'm the oldest of four.
Oh, nice. Catholic?
As close as you can get. Presbyterian.
Episcopalian? Oh, okay.
My dad's actually a pastor, was a pastor
Gotcha.
through our whole upbringing. And so it was kind of all all boys schools / kind of Christian / pseudo-Christian.
I feel like the pastors' kids can go one of two ways.
There you go.
Right?
I'll let you decide.
I think I know which way you went. And,
Well, I was a late bloomer in that direction.
okay.
You know,
So you fulfilled the pastor's kid prophecy just later in life.
Exactly. Hence, Cereus Bright.
What happened with Mom? Was she working at the church?
No.
No?
With 4 kids, she was holding down the fort. A lot to keep up with.
So you're the oldest of 4.
I am.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Was music a thing in the family? Other than the radio playing,
right, some Christian music.
Yeah.
It
DC
really
Talk?
wasn't. Ooh, good pull. Jesus freak. It really wasn't. And I think that's part of maybe some of my well, I want to give credit where credit's due. I had music lessons, and I had piano lessons, and so there was certainly an opportunity to engage with music, but my parents aren't, musical in that way. So, it felt a little bit more, kind of like another kind of extracurricular.
Yeah.
And when I was probably about 15 or 16, I kind of had this awakening, kind of around music. I was starting to learn chords, and I was like, oh, this fucking theory is just so exhausting. I hate it. Though I wouldn't have said that for then, I'm sure. But I started to really understand probably around 15 or 16, really the structure of theory. And then I was like, oh, I can just write my own songs. And honestly, from that point on, I was just like, I'm done taking lessons, and all I want to do is just come home from school and hammer at the piano and write songs, much to the chagrin of my siblings. I think especially my next brother Kyle has a lot of piano PTSD, because I would just come home
and you bang on it.
He's just do.
Did you do the church choir thing and all that growing up?
Not really.
No.
Kind of very loosely, but in the same kind of spirit of the a cappella type of thing. Wasn't super suited to it, and really didn't really take to theory and the kind of precision of choral music.
Yeah. Sight reading was always kind of hard, and reading music and doing it on the fly.
Yeah.
Being expected to go there with your voice.
Yeah, it's a different kind of thing, and I still get a lot of performance anxiety around kind of perfection, and I think that was something about the quality of the folk music, or now I recognize it as kind of folk adjacent. It's are the Avett Brothers really folk music? I don't know, but that kind of Americana stuff felt like it was a permission to be, human or more organic, that really opened kind of the path for me.
So do you think you would have made the kind of music you made had the Mumford and Sons, the Avett Brothers, maybe even the Wilcos at some point, not given you the permission to hey, this is cool, people like this? You think you would have?
Probably not,
really?
Honestly, because I think I needed that, kind of bar to reach for, or that permission, because I was listening through a lot of college to a lot of kind of vanilla Nashville singer-songwriter, vanilla pop type of stuff that again I liked, but felt kind of inaccessible for me to kind of create. So yeah, who's to know? But it happened as it happened, and
well, so the first EP was 2013. I listened to that today. Goldmine?
Yeah.
Is that the name of it?
Yeah.
Goldmine? So I listened to the EP all the way.
God bless you.
Well, I listened to the EP all the way through. And then when I heard the song, this was interesting. When I heard the song the second time, because it came back around again, I was like, I know this song. I was like, is he covering something? And then I realized, no, you weren't covering it. I had just heard it about 30 minutes earlier, but it already had that. It was in me,
Are you talking about Cereus Bright specifically?
Yeah, I was talking about, Goldmine. And
Goldmine, yeah.
Goldmine specifically. When the EP came back around and played again, I was like, I fucking love this song. I was I just heard it for the first time 30 minutes ago. It was already ingrained in my brain. I'd heard it, my whole life. I was trying to figure out what song you were covering, and it was it was just the first song on the EP again.
That's very sweet.
But it seems universal. Your stuff is just in there.
Well, thank you. I have a really complicated relationship with those old songs, not to sound melodramatic or self-important, but I think because they were, what's that, 8 years ago? so wrote it maybe 9 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Like a different human being feels like, wrote that. And yeah, so it's really sweet for you to listen and give a compliment to the kind of younger me.
Well, I've been listening to your stuff, here and there, because you're kind of ubiquitous around here. Everybody's heard your music or been to a show, it seems like. And to be able to walk through all of it, I could kind of hear some growth in there to go through the catalog. And it certainly got better and it got more refined. It felt like for you guys, you felt more comfortable, or sounded more comfortable, but it sounded like you were getting away from not, I don't want to say imitating, that's the wrong word, but you had kind of found your own voice a little bit found your own sound towards the second half of that run.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think a big part of that, a lot of that credit is due to the other band members coming in and having other creative input. Those first 2 EPs were really Evan and I, and with, we had kind of producer help and would pull in musicians and stuff, but still kind of like you're saying, kind of approximating sounds, which is, this is how you learn. I think what has always kind of been, I felt both like thankful and conflicted by, is that, our stuff that we made early on is still out there, like maybe people, like you had Garrett on, it's like he probably made some, like, his first EPs or demos or whatever happened in secret, maybe put on SoundCloud, he can put some down and,
make all your mistakes in the dark.
Exactly.
Before anybody's watching or listening.
So in a lot of ways, it's like, it feels vulnerable to have the early stuff out there. But it also taught me a really good lesson, which was that people, especially people in Knoxville, were ready to be supportive. And that, for artists out there, whatever, it really is a good way to kind of get the chops, not of just putting something out, like the actual kind of like mechanics of like recording something and finishing something, but also kind of testing out what it's like to release something or interacting with people and kind of giving people the opportunity to like something, so, in a lot of ways it kind of got me here, even if I feel kind of like it feels, some of the songs can feel kind of young to me,
Well, I've had a gripe, that
it up.
I've had a gripe on this show with our town that I talked about on my first ever episode with Matt Honkin, and I remember I keep going back to this because I always think about it. It seems like we have a disproportionate amount of talent around here and a disproportionate amount of really good bands to not have a Mandolin Orange that just blows up and is, I don't want to say household name, but it very internationally recognized. Yeah. And the more I dig into it, I find guys like you and I find guys like Garrett, and you look at your plays on Spotify and all that, you're in the millions, you're in the 7 million for Stella, and so I'm so glad that you've seen some success in a big way and people are gravitating towards you. I mean, that's not your friends. When you're at 7 or 8 million plays, that's not just your friends listening to it. You've gotten something's happened. Yeah. Something's gotten out there. Your stuff's resonated. Is there a moment in there where it felt like things were like, okay, this is happening?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's very kind. And, I feel thankful for what we did experience. I would say, though, for us at least, the traction moments really happened from a lot of work and a lot of kind of like outside of Knoxville connection. Well, and to give credit where credit is due, I would say a big part of our kind of, launching was the Dirty Govs offering us some love and some support early on as well.
Opening for them?
Yeah, so I reached out to James Tremmel early on and was emailing him, and because I'm kind of a marketer by day, I have that kind of again, to make fun of myself, that like kind of white guy college preparatory confidence of like, oh well, why
did I just call him?
Why shouldn't the world bend to my will? which is a conversation for, an hour from now.
It's called entitlement.
Exactly. But just hit him up and say, hey man, can we open for you? Can we open for you? And he kind of gave it a few years to I think see if we had our shit together. And as we kept kind of playing coffee shops and, getting more and more people out to like the Square Room and, selling out the Square Room at some point, which was like 400 people, even from a business standpoint, it's like, oh cool, this is a good look and can like pull some people to us.
Yeah.
Asked us to open for them at the Tennessee Theater for a New Year's Eve show. It went well, and then they asked us to open for them for like a spring tour, and then it was kind of through that we ended up linking up with like a manager and a booking agent.
Nice. Got a following going?
Yeah, and again, though, like I would say, a long way to kind of answer your question about like when it felt like real. We got offered an opening spot for a band called the Oh Hellos for like a 2-month tour. And they were probably selling out 1,000-person rooms like every night, and that was really exciting and really humbling. But two kind of like behind the scenes details is, one, I had been like internet flirting with them for like a year, trying to ask them to get us, I was like, hey, love you guys, and just emailing them and like stalking people and
trying to get in their internet pants.
Exactly. Trying to like do versions of their email on like, Google searches, with quotation
info
marks
at ohhello.com.
And also we made no money. We were being paid $125 a night for 5 people for 2 months.
That's tough.
Impossible to do. So I think some of the challenge of like a band, kind of getting beyond is not just a Knoxville problem, but also a problem with the industry, and I think that there are people that are super talented that are able to do that. But something like you say, even a Mandolin Orange, what I think about is like, oh, husband and wife able to like be really tight, a duo, which is a lot easier than a 5 people. Like I've seen, I've come out of the Matrix. I'm like, I know all the numbers, and sometimes, as unsexy and unromantic as that is, I feel like that is what happens. And it's hard because when you're an artist and you're starting out and you're trying to make something that you believe in, that's the farthest thing from your mind.
You're not trying to create a sustainable business model.
Yeah,
right?
But ultimately that is what is, to me, I mean, I don't know if I actually believe this is true, but like what I see time and time again is what makes or breaks people is that dynamic.
Yeah.
Is the kind of business savvy, or having someone on the team that has that, even if they don't.
You remember the polyphonic spree?
Yeah.
I was like, how the hell did they do that? There's 60 people in that group. How do you get
another time?
How do you get that thing started?
I know, and not now. That's for damn sure. You get a Patreon or something. It's like you're a self-starter. Like, I know you were talking about this with Garrett, some of the Spotify stuff, but it's like there's like 40,000 songs being submitted every single day on Spotify or something.
It's crazy.
It's like
so stupid, and it's good and it's bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's good because the gatekeeper, well, the barrier to entry's down.
Yeah,
everybody's got a shot. It levels the playing field. But then you get in there, and there's still all kinds of inequality, right? I mean, the Kendrick Lamars and the Ed Sheerans and stuff like that. Those are getting the big pieces of the pie. And then, there's a lot of bands out there with the less than 1,000 number next to their songs and their names.
Well, I'm frankly curious if, you talk about kind of a big household name or whatever. I'm frankly curious not how many more of those we will see, but just what that path is now. Because even in the last 10 years, I think things continue to kind of overturn of like what is normal and the kind of competition and the saturation and the kind of rules of engagement. It's like maybe even the people that in our head are like have kind of crossed through, like someone like an Alabama Shakes or whatever, like that feels kind of like a true authentic artist that is like maybe quote unquote legitimately made it through just kind of by their talent. Maybe they started 10 years ago and just kind of got in under that radar before things were like so saturated.
Yeah. So I wonder how much of it is merit based, because I go and I listen to your stuff, and it's like, I don't want to offend you, but you can draw some Mumford and Son, and that era you can draw those
I said
parallels
it, don't worry.
to the sound.
To, yeah.
Okay. But you can draw some parallels there, and I don't know why, from listening to your stuff, I don't know what would make their stuff any better. I think your stuff sounds just as good. So, how much of it's merit and how much of it is support, how much of it is luck? Because all those kind of play into it. If you have record label support, putting you out there on the road or whatever, getting you exposure, getting you a following, and then I talked about it with Garrett too. With Garrett Sale, how important getting playlisted is.
Yeah.
And then it seems like there have to be all these new kind of ways that people get their music in front of people's ears that all have to line up, and it's almost like there's it is luck. Like it really is at some point, because so many people have the chops. Or am I wrong? Is there something there? Is there a thread that I'm missing that I can't see?
I mean, I think what I would say, even more than luck, is marketing.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate it, but I feel like it's true, because I see people that aren't good that are doing the things, they're running the ads, or they're doing whatever bullshit, and like they're kind of just getting the plays because they're doing those things. I always like jokingly say like what would happen if Bob Dylan we're starting now. It's like his demeanor and personality or values or whatever. I mean, it's apples to oranges, but like I know those people that are just good, talented, making stuff with a different headspace and ideology, and totally kind of like unequipped in a good way for the participation in the kind of like game of social media marketing capitalism,
like anti-establishment kind of vibe.
Yeah, or just even just like the kind of like, you have to be an entrepreneur, like you have to be also a business person. You can't just be a songwriter, an artist. You have to be these other things too, and that precludes all sorts of people, and maybe even it precludes our best artists.
Yeah,
because they're the ones that are like most focused on their stuff and least focused on like fuck all this stuff. I don't care, and I'm probably romanticizing someone like Bob Dylan or something, but you know what I mean. I think that as time has gone on, like a lot of things, the industry in the space continues to kind of be capitalized by the people that are
get clicks, likes, subscribes,
somehow have access to or are prioritizing a certain kind of whatever that and I think I'm talking out of two sides of my mouth, because I truly think that's part of how I am here today, even talking to you, is not because my stuff is like particularly incredible, but because I was able to like leverage some of those skills to get here. not because I'm
outside of music.
Awesome. Yeah.
Skills outside of music.
Yeah. All that kind of like marketing stuff.
Is that what you went to college for?
Went to college for psychology.
At UT?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So, grew up, oldest of four, church, Memphis. Moved here to go to school. Studied psychology.
Thought I was going to work for the church, and then after college, again, to kind of, reference like a secret implosion. Working for the coffee shop, and then had this kind of regular coming into Remedy. And one day I was like, "What do you do?" And he was like, "Oh, marketing." And literally had no idea what that was, because I had such a blinders on towards kind of the church. And I was like, "I'm not sure what that is, but is there anything that you do that you hate to do that you could teach me to do that pays me as much, if not maybe a little bit more than this coffee shop? And
That's
he's
a
like,
really good way to get in the door just about anywhere. Can I take away all your pain points?
Life hack. White man edition. I'm really branding myself with this vibe of
That's all right.
hating myself.
No.
I'm just very cognizant these days of some of those behaviors being, kind of leveraged from this kind of confidence that I maybe don't deserve. But
he started doing the things he didn't want to do.
He was like, "Sure, can you write like a newsletter?" And I was like, "Okay." And then I did. He's like, "Yeah, it's good enough."
I charge $25 a night. I don't know if you know from my touring days. That's what I charge.
Yeah, and I was like, "Well, I'm making this much at Remedy, so you can pay me $1 more." And so I kind of slowly like moved towards the marketing space, and then I was able to make that kind of my part-time bill-paying gig.
Copywriting or writing a newsletter?
Yeah. Doing blogs, doing social media, doing, that. And then eventually kind of expanded into making websites. And
Did you learn the tech part of making website or the design part?
The design part.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you can find someone to make a Squarespace site for and say, hey, they want it made. You can probably figure it out because you just left college and you're like, I got nothing else to do.
Yeah.
Been on a computer my whole life. So it was a lot of saying yes and then figuring it out.
Some of the most successful people I know have done exactly that. Said yes and then figured out a way to do it.
And that's really, again, another kind of detail of the kind of Cereus Bright arc, which, you don't see when you see the 7 million streams or whatever, is that both Evan and we didn't pay ourselves from the band and the music for the entire time that we were actively touring. Not a dime. And, again, not to sound like, good for me. It was more just out of like necessity. It was like when I said like we have that tour with like the Hellos and we're making $125 a night. You're paying for gas, a little food money, if it's a hotel if you need it. Pay our, musicians who all went to music school and this is their main gig. Pay them for the gig. Evan and I are rolling up to the venue a few hours early and hopping on our computers and trying to make a little money building websites or whatever.
I've also heard that as a really good piece of advice for a young entrepreneur, for a business owner, is pay yourself last. Pay everybody else first.
Yeah.
And then you get what's left over. Motivates you to, push it.
Yeah.
It's your motivation to get it over the top.
Yeah.
But also it's a responsible way to do things. Those guys wouldn't have played very hard for you if you were paying yourself first.
Well, we were in the trenches together and, it didn't feel as much like, it felt like we were a team and just kind of trying to build something and, it felt very pure doing something we love and feeling very thankful to get to play music every night for months on end sometimes. Did
you build up a decent following with the opening for Oh Hello?
Yeah, and
half the people are in the room, right? Already, or 3/4?
Oh yeah.
1,000 people a night, 750 of them are already there.
Yep.
To see you guys.
Yeah, and I think just the kind of like validity that it creates is like when someone sees you in a venue like that, even if you were playing a show by yourself, you'd have like 20 people in the city, you're in a big venue, even if the crowd's, thin, you feel like a real band. So they take you seriously and they kind of listen to music or they buy merch and they engage you.
Right.
So it was really special. I think that was kind of one of the more extreme kind of feeling like we made it moments. And, we had some, big wins along the way. But an hour-long path to kind of like where we are now, it got really hard. I think supporting a band of 5 people full-time is, I don't want to say damn near impossible, but that's a business, that's like a whole churning thing if like everyone's eggs are in that basket. And in about 2017, I would say we were kind of feeling the pains of that. We had all kind of put in a number of years, I don't want to say making compromises, but, certainly, yeah, it's like the guys, the full-time musicians could be making more in town and we're making sacrifices to tour and, you know, Evan and I were, put in a lot of hours, and then I'd gotten married, and, so there's all this kind of other equation of like, am I, the kind of responsibilities of like stabilizing and, loving, the person you're with. And it was just hard. And so we kind of took a unofficial hiatus, which turned into a permanent one. And, kind of through all that, like reconfigured and realized that, a lot of us kind of needed to go different directions and wanted different things and had different needs. And, it kind of created a pretty natural reason to have iteration 5.
Yeah. Was there ever any guilt there when you have people, 4 or 5 other people who are coming out on the road with you every night? They're not getting paid that well. You guys are having fun and all that, but is there ever any guilt there of like, these people are making huge sacrifices to help me fulfill my dream, help me feed my we said narcissism earlier as
right.
artists, I mean, is there anything there of it gets to a point where it's a burden a little bit on you, to where you feel like you're not giving back as much as you're getting from these people who are helping you?
Certainly. How dare you? I mean, it is.
I know the feeling.
Yeah, you are describing a kind of personal challenge of mine, which I'm very codependent already, which is to kind of bear that, emotional weight. I've talked to the guys, plenty of times since then. And they might listen to this, so I love you all. I hope I'm not speaking for you. But, we were all working on stuff we wanted to together. Like, no one was there by force. And, like, we were all trying to do something really hard. And I certainly felt the responsibility. And I think that's actually part of what brought us into kind of the next stage, was I think that the practicality of leveling up and making more money and becoming more stable for everyone also involved things that felt like compromise to us. So like by the end, we were getting opportunities to tour for bands that like made us want to throw up. We're like, fuck this. Like I can't stomach it, and like the Oh Hellos were awesome, but like we were kind of trending in this like folk pop type of way, which felt more and more hollow and less earnest. And like we were getting traction in the places we didn't want to. It's like we'd rather aim towards Wilco, but we were like feeling like we were aiming towards kind of this like nameless blankety blank band that's just like, making, kind of just vanilla folk pop. And that's, very judgy.
Well, was there the thought out there? This is probably a terrible question, but is it, when you got approached to do some of these, is it like they should be opening for us? Like we're way better band than they are.
Honestly. And I think, and that some of what you're like joking about is like the reality, the kind of existential identity crisis we were feeling, which was like, we know we're better. Like these guys are fucking so talented. We can make so much better, more sophisticated stuff. But the places in which we've gotten traction is like not that. It's the stuff that feels maybe like, a little bit more on the nose, and we want to make weirder stuff, and we want to like really push, but in a sense that feels like kind of like starting over. And so our team is like, yeah, that's cool, but like this is what's making money, so like let's get another one of those. Even loosely, it's just hard. And you're like, do we have it in us to kind of like, I don't know, I don't want to say start over, but that kind of risk of like being like, okay, fuck it, we're going to just make something completely, that we want to make. And then I think that offers a whole other question, which is like, what is that? And then we have 5 people with different sensibilities, and like, having been together for like 5 years working on stuff, like, is there a thing that we all want to make? That is like, we have a joint shared goal. And the answer was no. And it had nothing to do with like, quality. It was just like different sensibilities,
Was that because it started with you and Evan, and then the other 3 just kind of filled in and maybe didn't feel like founding members, or didn't feel like they had a place at the table as far as creating this stuff is concerned, more like a hired gun? Did you ever Did you ever bridge that gap to where it felt like all 5 of you were the band and you were all 5 pushing forward and everybody felt emboldened to make their own stuff?
That's a good question. And I would be I would be wary to like speak too much for those guys. I mean, it's kind of like,
well, for you, did it feel like the ship was like
that's a question I can't answer, which is like I tried to, but the reality was there's too many moving parts to like ever be able to like identify that place of like complete congruency amongst all of us, like all the kind of shareholders, which was like us, the band, the audience, the manager, the booking agent, the momentum. Oh, sorry.
No worries.
It
takes a lot to get all of that moving in the same direction, right?
And then you wake up one day and you're like, fuck, like, what am I even doing? Like, what is this? Like, I was starting this because I love to write songs, and now I'm like waking up stressed, thinking about what to do rather than like loving this thing. And I think that it's kind of like a long way to get to like the challenge of art in the modern age, you know, in our case, particularly music, because, you know, if you have put all your eggs in that basket, I think those calculations ultimately like come, you know, you have to kind of deal with in one way or the other.
So some of those bands that you couldn't stomach to go open for, even though it might have been good for your career, they'd obviously done something.
List their names.
Yeah, please name them. No, did there? Were you able to? Is that where kind of the marketing thing clicked for you too? It's like these guys just found a spot and they've marketed themselves well. Was there anything that you learned on that side with your penchant for marketing that you kind of were able to learn from seeing these other bands that were, you know, maybe not as right on the spot as you guys were, maybe not hitting as hard as you guys were? Were there, you know, was there something to learn from that? No is a completely fine answer.
I think, I don't know if this is going to answer the question, but I think that what I learned generally from all that was it's hard to do, and you have to love what you're doing, because otherwise you're going to run out of steam fast. And, you know, things like, oh, it takes 10 years or 15 years or something to kind of like cut through the atmosphere and maybe like get enough of an audience to kind of stabilize and then maybe feel the permission to be a little more, you know, adventurous. Case in point, you know, you mentioned Man on Orange. Like, I know that the guy whose name I can't remember just put out like 2 instrumental albums this year.
How'd they do?
I'm not sure, but I know that he was excited to do it, and he did it, and it was fun. And I don't think the fact that I don't have to answer that question or don't know the answer, he probably doesn't have to know it either. I think they put in the work to kind of earn the space to be kind of do whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
And have also loved what they were doing on the way there. And I think that's what we felt was like, oh, this is going to be so hard that like whatever we do, we have to love. And that's kind of where the long road for me to Cereus Bright now, which is a long fight towards making something I love, something that I'm actually proud of. It's something that can be free of all those questions, because otherwise I'm just like treating music, for me at least, I'm just treating music like another product, and it's too special for me to kind of bastardize in that way. And I don't want to ever like assume someone else is bastardizing it just because it happens to be trendy, or just because it happens to not be my taste or preference. Maybe at another, you know, maybe back then I would have like pointed the finger, say, fuck these guys, they're playing the game, and, you know, whatever band that would have been, and like, you know, they're just being strategic. I don't know. You don't know what other people's preferences are. Like, I know people that, you know, make stuff that, and they're super stoked about it. I'm like, oh, that feels cheesy to me, but you love it, and that's fine. Lord knows some of my old stuff felt like that too. So, you know, I've kind of like stopped trying to place judgment on the motivation of other artists, and I can instead just say, hey, if you're going to be doing it, you have to really love it, because it's going to take a lot of work, and that's the only, you need that kind of gas in the tank.
I see some bands who work very hard. I look at Fish is a band that I've liked since I was in high school. They're obviously pretty prolific. They all four of them have side projects. As much as they tour, as much as they put this thing out and fill stadiums with 25,000 people a night, they still go out and they make stuff that they want to make away from each other.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty interesting, and I think that would be a bit of a, not just them, a lot of bands do it. You mentioned it with Mandolin Orange. He made an instrumental album because maybe the thing that's buttered your bread the whole time is obviously the right thing for you to be doing as an artist and as a musician, but there's still a piece missing somewhere, maybe, or there's a little bit something else out there. And I feel like it would be easy to get in that trap once the bills start getting paid with your with your music.
Certainly. Well, I can't again speak for like all artists, but I do think generally there is a certain kind of like creative energy and activation that comes from exploring new mediums or things or sounds or whatever it may be.
Sometimes going and playing in a different sandbox may help you bring something really great back to your job, which is obviously an important thing.
Or you're an artist, you're a creative. The whole reason you're doing it is you love that, process. You love to doing that, and so you're trying to stay fresh, and you're just moving toward your curiosities. Yeah, and I think we do see that from kind of like those mature artists who've kind of seemed to settle in. They have their cadence of like, okay, we're gonna make this record, a record kind of on, our main band every few years, and then we've worked hard enough for 20 years or whatever it is to like have the space to kind of continue to do those things, because we're creative people and we like to just like make stuff.
The Jack White thing doesn't happen that often, where there's the White Stripes goes out and is great, and then somebody splits off and does a solo thing and it's just as good as the main thing. And always tip my hat to people when I see that happen, because it usually that doesn't always go that way. Gwen Stefani maybe, although Tragic Kingdom is the best album I've ever heard in my life.
Bada bing. You heard it here first, folks. The best album in his life. And who's to know? I think sometimes stuff going well or playing well is, like we were saying earlier, a matter of, the moment. Yeah. And I think probably it's like, I love when you can tell people are doing stuff for themselves. Like Hayley Williams from Paramore has been doing her own solo work and just put out a really incredible record earlier last year rather, and then just kind of out of the blue did a surprise one that she recorded all herself, every part of it in her home studio, played every instrument. That's incredible.
That is incredible. What's crazy? This is some reverse, like, my phone listening to me algorithm AI stuff. Mm-hmm. I have not thought about Paramore or for years, and I was scrolling through Instagram or something a couple days ago, and her face came up and was like, "Hi, I'm Hayley Williams, the lead singer or whatever for Paramore." I hadn't thought about them in years, and here you are mentioning it. She must be making some waves.
It was probably a BetterHelp ad. I've been getting that ad too.
Have you?
I guess we both need therapy.
They know.
That's the moral of the story. Yeah. Like, 30s, washed up, creative. Yeah. This person. You need therapy. We know you do.
Well, what's the 5.0? Where's Cereus Bright right now? I want to talk about your marketing stuff too, but I'd like to know like where you're at with Cereus Bright right now.
So kind of since the band, kind of reconfigured, I kind of reabsorbed the name, and
that's your IP.
Yeah, exactly. Hashtag trademark. I was able to finally write songs and make songs that I really wanted to, kind of like separate from all those other calculations. Like I said, songs about my family or you know, my faith, my journey, you know, kind of a consideration of who I was. I know, kind of like make no assumption that my story is like particularly like extraordinary, but for me, not that it needs like to be justified, but I feel like some of my arc is probably shared from a lot of like 30-something year olds, where there's this kind of like version of us not too far away that we can kind of see that we're maybe like starting to grapple with, you know, and I think that there's questions about who we are and what made us this way that I at least am like asking. And so that's really what like those songs were about. And so I started to just
the early ones or the new
ones.
Yeah.
And just songs I wrote in my attic. You know, I would go do my marketing work, and then come home, and you know, my wife was at school, and I would go up to the attic and just write some songs. And it was really a sort of like return to form for me, how it used to be. The kind of like, oh, the day is done, let me process. But now I have another 10 years of, you know, songwriting experience, and was really able to make stuff that I'm excited about. And then I started to, again, always the digital flirter, kind of identify some guys in Nashville online, sent some DMs, as the kids say. Yeah, kind of got some guys together in Nashville to start recording some of these songs. And
sweet. Did you record them there? Here?
I did, in Nashville.
How many did you write?
Oh, I wrote a lot, but there's 10 on this next project, this next album.
An LP?
An LP. A full-on LP. Thank you.
There's another Stella.
Oh, my God. I just got it.
No.
Did you do that on purpose?
I didn't. I drink this stuff pretty much. That's
Stella.
pretty much all we drink around here.
Well, not a bad fit.
Well, no, it wasn't. Especially when I started digging into your music, I was like, I love him already.
It's meant to be.
It is. So you recorded all 10 in Nashville?
I did.
Was Garrett involved in any of them?
Not on the recording producing side, which is obviously stupid because he's so good. But he was in the middle of finishing up his record, and just the way that the timing was working, I was kind of ready to pull the trigger.
Well, when did you guys start? When did you guys meet each other? I feel like we've talked about him enough. We've got to get that together.
We met in college.
Really?
Yeah.
So you guys were in college at the same time at UT.
He was is a little younger than me, and he also was kind of in like a Christian faith adjacent type of thing.
That's interesting. And
so we didn't really like reconnect. Well, you know, obviously we were both doing music, so we both kind of had like similar journeys.
But was it after Cereus Bright had got some traction and William Wild had got some traction that you guys kind of like, hey man, we're doing it. Yeah,
exactly. And so we actually touring with our first LP, Excuses. It was like in the middle of the summer, and there's no like. Normally those are festival shows, and like we waited too long on our booking agent was like, well, there's no like venue shows, so we're like, fuck it, we're gonna just like book our own tour, and booked like a 35 city house show tour.
Nice.
And had
is that mostly fans?
Yeah, which it was all fans.
That's great.
Like 50 people in a house.
You know Eric Baker? The dude's made a living doing that the last.
Well, I know of Eric Baker. We haven't like hung out. But
he's been on the show. But he's leaned into that hard.
Hell yeah!
When you have diehard fans,
yeah.
Because
then again, I mean, it's kind of the spirit too of just like connecting, not playing the vanity game of like you're really there and people want to be there. And so we asked Garrett to open for us on that tour. I mean, open quote unquote.
It was a co-headlining tour.
Yeah, right. Well, AKA also like run sound for us and be in the van with us.
Did he do solo stuff as an opener?
So he just like hopped in the van with us, and there were 6 of us and playing in house shows playing in houses.
6 man.
Yeah, exactly. A hilarious wrinkle of that was that our AC was on the fritz, and we were like
in the van,
and we were touring through Texas.
That's a good way to get everybody real pissed off,
dude,
and irritable.
Man, truly the hottest. No offense, Texas, especially right now, but truly the hottest I think I've ever been was like that summer going through Texas with no AC, just 100+ degree heat, just 6 guys shirtless in the van, just, you know, in their underwear, so sweaty, so smelly. And then we show up at some person's house and we smell awful. And we're like, so sorry, the AC's out. We got to play, you know, we'll take a shower and then set up the sound equipment and then play. But that was kind of long way to say that's how kind of Garrett and I started to reconnect. And
what happened first, William Wild or Cereus Bright? Which one of you guys started to kind of get traction first? Was it kind of close together?
We might have been a smidge ahead.
Yeah.
In terms of like starting, and then, you know, he is much cooler than I and had kind of like a big moment. But now I'd say we kind of have like saddle up together, and there's just, I think there was maybe, I don't know if he ever felt this towards me, but like generally I think when I was starting I felt a sort of like competition of like, oh man, I gotta be like all these you know, there's like 5 like Knoxville bands of like a similar size.
Who are the other ones
at the time?
Yeah.
Oh,
Black Cadillacs.
Yeah, maybe Black Cadillacs.
You mentioned
maybe Maplehurst.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, just kind of. It's not even that I like wanted anyone to fail. It's more just like you're aware of each other and like you're playing and
you want to
like,
beat them. You want to do better than them. I get it. I get competition.
We live in America.
Yeah.
I'm so happy to report that all that is dead and gone, and Garrett and I couldn't be more like, you know, in each other's corner. So he has mixed this upcoming record.
Yeah, that's what he said. He said that he mixed a couple records for you, or 2 songs on the album that he was telling me about anyway.
No, he mixed the whole record.
He mixed the whole thing?
Yeah. He probably was just saying the 2 songs that are out are the first ones.
Sam was saying that he heard them and that they're awesome.
Yeah. They're out
Hell
there.
yeah.
Out there in the wild.
I'll listen to them after this. So this is a 5.0 album coming out. Is it out yet? Or just a couple of the songs?
Just 2 songs, and then there'll be a new song that comes out the start of each month until May, and then at the end of May, the full thing will come out.
Wait, how does that work? That's like a television model meets Netflix. You know, it's like we release it episodically.
2021, baby. Yeah,
you release one song at a time as a single,
yes.
or as and then you release the album as its full thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
That's
baby.
fun.
You gotta play the algorithm.
I don't know the game, dude.
You don't know the game,
No.
and I'm glad that you don't, because it would just depress you. But these are the things we do for streams and clicks.
Well, it might be a good segue into saying that you have done your fair share of homework on how this stuff works, and not just how to make the art, but how the art is uptaken and how it gets in people's face and how people become aware of you from a marketing standpoint. I guess you've watched it from the sidelines with Cereus Bright, but now you have started to lean into that a little bit more, right?
Yeah. I was working for a software company for a couple of years, and it was, you know, not my favorite thing, and I kind of had this feeling. It's kind of like maybe a postscript to what we were just joking about, of maybe feeling a little like competitive towards Knoxville artists. I kind of had this like chip on my shoulder. I was like, oh, the Knoxville scene, it could be so much better. What are we doing? Like, you know, at my worst I would say, oh man, it sucks, like, you know, whatever. And then I was like, what am I talking about? Like, I feel like it could be better, than help. Like, what am I doing? Why am I being so cynical about what's not there? Like, be a part of the solution, if you will. So yeah, about a year ago, I started helping some other smaller bands kind of try to navigate some of this stuff as well, because I just know, although we're talking about it, it's just so hard, and it makes me mad that a good artist would have a barrier to getting their stuff out just because they for some reason don't have the kind of a marketing experience or something like that.
Do you just help them on the marketing side, or do you help them on the artistry
no,
side?
I
or the
was
technical side
kind
too?
of like, quote unquote, like managing a few bands, and
Gotcha.
have kind of since like downshifted a little bit to more just like management consulting.
Yeah.
With no fees, no, like I'm not charging anyways. More just kind of like trying to like help in those roles.
It's awesome.
And because, you know, the line between kind of management and marketing is blurry in music, and some of it is more just kind of about like pointing in the right direction of like what I've seen work or what I've seen people try different kind of strategies or whatever. And especially kind of as COVID has hit, trying to just be helpful for people, especially local artists trying to figure out what to do in the interim and moving forward, because I think that like as technology in the industry continues to like change and evolve, with just like adaptation is like survival.
Yeah. Well, so how are bands doing it now that you can't tell a talent buyer or can't tell a guy to just come out and see your show? Come see us. We're great. Like, I mean, yeah, you can send them some links, some SoundCloud, Bandcamp, Spotify, whatever you want. You show them a badass website. I mean, like, how does a band starting right now even market themselves or how are they proving their value to anybody who matters right now? Because it's got to be different than it was a year and a half ago.
Yeah. I think it is, and I think it's different than it was 5 years ago. It's kind of $1 million question. I think it probably does depend, which is kind of like a non-answer about the person, their connections, their genre. I think generally though, I am interested in encouraging artists to build their own fan base. Separate from the channels and separate from those conversations. A kind of hypothetical I'm kind of quick to raise for some people I talk to is like, okay, if you had 100 people willing to give you $5 or $10 a month, how much is that? And like, let me break down what it takes to make that on Spotify and all the kind of like vanity positioning you have to do. And then all of a sudden, if like you're thinking, oh, can I get 500 people in my corner? Again, like you referencing Eric Baker, kind of like maybe similar to the house show thing, kind of expanded out. You guys are doing that with Patreon. It's like maybe instead of competing in the whole kind of big ecosystem ocean.
Appeal to your true fans.
Yeah, and think local. I think a lot of artists are quick to look towards the kind of vanity metrics of a Spotify or YouTube or something public like Instagram, and what's a lot less sexy is maybe your local whatever. But if you can get people on board as a kind of base in your local marketer where you are, people that know you, and you can kind of create some stable foundation, then you have a place in which to like try to play some of those other games. So I truly think that the future of artists is more like low volume, high density patronage.
Sam, do you remember when Andy Wood was over here and we were standing around the fire and he started talking about 1,000 loyal fans or 1,000 true fans? You remember that? Yeah. I looked into that, and that's a thing. It's a model. Yeah. If you have 1,000 loyal fans, 1,000 true fans that you can get to spend $100 a year with you. Bing. Right? 6 figures. Right. For you to create your stuff. And I'm sure you'll have costs in there and all that. But, I mean, that's assuming you can make a living off $100,000 a year. But, and that seems like an attainable number. Yeah,
it is. It doesn't just seem, I mean, you think about Knoxville, it's like, well, there's 1,000 good people here, Like, and I think the game that you're going to play, you can adjust what you set your sights on and how you measure success. And so, when an artist is just like stepping into the internet, you're competing against everything. Right. If I'm running an ad, I'm competing against every fucking brand. I'm pizza, home loans, this, that, like
you're day trading attention. You're trying to get people's eyeballs on your stuff. And there's so many different things for them to look at. You're trying to get their thumb to stop for 3 seconds.
And it's like, is that really the kind of, behavior? Is that the kind of art you want to be making? Is that the kind of like game you want to be playing? almost certainly not. And almost certainly the energy you would spend and maybe even the money you would spend to kind of participate in that type of, kind of competitive game is, could be better spent in other places. I think if people are willing to, or artists are willing to change their definition of what success looks like, and, I'm a big advocate, and maybe it's a little prescriptive for my story too, but like, I'm a big advocate of like, the kind of like middle class artist or middle class musician or a part-time one who's able to like we were talking earlier, like y'all are doing it here with this podcast, where you're able to have a both and it takes extra work, but it always takes extra work.
Sure.
And if you love the thing, you have extra energy to try to do it.
I'm pumped to hear the LP. I'll tell you that right now.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I'm excited.
And I hope things continue to keep going well for you, because it sounds like they have been.
Well, that
sounds like it's taking hard work.
There you go. I was gonna say it's it has been good, and I'm very thankful, and I'm also like quick to encourage people to. I don't want to say work hard, because that sounds very kind of like,
go get them, Tiger.
Go get them, pull yourself. No, but it is like, I have a particular kind of like softness and empathy and sensitivity towards like the modern artist, and want to like be as helpful I can about like being honest about what, is it really happening, and helping people like really do what they want to do,
I think that's a noble cause, that once you feel comfortable in where you're at and you don't feel threatened by other people that are starting to come into your space, if you can give them a leg up, if you can help them a little bit, I think that's a sign of somebody who's secure. I see that around a lot in our business. You see people that see a new guy coming in and they're either threatened by them, or they want to impart as much on them as they can because they want them to succeed, because a rising tide floats all boat, or lifts all boats.
Yeah.
And I think that's cool that you have segued into a space where you don't mind sharing. It's pretty cool.
Thanks, man. That's kind. I mean, I think I'm just generally tired. I'm tired of the kind of capitalistic, grind that, turns us all into pulp, and I'm just not interested anymore in perpetuating any of those like narratives of anything that's unhelpful and unhuman. It's like, so I love what you guys are doing here, is it's very genuine and rooted, and I think as I have kind of cussed my 30s, I just want to have a healthy life. Yeah. I'm willing to work hard. Mm-hmm. I'm okay to be a little tired. I know there's a lot out in the world that I can't control, but I do know that here in Knoxville, or in my local community, I do have moments of like real interaction that can happen, that can actually matter, and there are things here in our city and relationships that actually can matter. And it's not to say that I think I'm anything special, but it's more just like, I think we all have opportunity to like help each other. I mean, now I'm starting to get a little campy, but it's just like, that's how we make our city awesome, and how we are a healthy community is if we're helpful. So,
and I think what you say also about the old way doesn't have to be the only way. You don't have to sell 1 billion records to make a living as a musician. You just got to you got to have enough to appeal to a certain amount of people, and you can live a civilized lifestyle.
Yeah.
Not be gone 180 days a year with your band. Spend time with your family. And still, What'd we miss? Did we miss anything?
What did we miss? I don't know. You tell me. Anything you want to know?
I don't know. How can people help your next effort? How can people, listen to your stuff? Is that the only way? Do you have Patreon or anything like that they can?
No, you can listen to the stuff. You can share it.
Yeah. Book you for shows.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I'm not even super concerned with that.
Yeah.
I think I've kind of put all that on a sort of pause.
Yeah.
Um,
Would you want to do a show at Garrett's studio
heck yeah.
and film it
Heck yeah.
and put it out?
Oh, I see what you're doing. Cross promotion.
No, I'm kind of talking about our idea that got you here in the first place. Was we've talked about filming. We talked with Garrett, me and Sam did, about doing a little concert series that we film. Tiny Desk is kind of what I keep coming back to. Just that kind of thing that comes out, once a month, however often. And Garrett had a great opportunity to say, "Yeah, I'd love to do it," but he said we should have you as our first
Oh,
dude.
wow! Okay.
He did, yes.
Well, I need to get some of my shit together then.
Do you think it'd be cool?
I think it'd be really cool.
Film it at his studio?
Yeah. You know I'm involved in that?
No.
Yeah.
Pink Moon?
Yeah.
Pink Moon's badass, dude.
It is. I'm the studio manager.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Well, so yeah, we did miss something here.
I'm the email address.
Really?
Yeah.
I had no idea. That studio is so badass.
It's so cool.
I've been to a lot of studios.
It doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't make sense. It makes no sense. It's in the middle of, even when I write it down, even when I'm like, here's where we plan on shooting this thing. It's like, they ripped this house apart, dude. They took the second floor out of that thing, vaulted the ceilings,
all the way to the ceiling,
and made a state-of-the-art recording studio in there, in Park Ridge.
Yeah, it's like big city level recording studio, just like right there.
Yes.
One thing I will say, since you've kind of invited
invited a chat.
You invited a chat. You said, what can people do to support? I mean, I think for me, the biggest goal of, this next batch of songs is a sort of self-reflection. I know that's heavy-handed, and I'm sure every artist kind of wants that. But I really feel so strongly about the importance of us as adults taking a look in the mirror at who we are and the things we are participating in. I think especially kind of coming from maybe for me a maybe more religious, more specifically ideological background. I felt the potency of living with kind of an unevaluated ideology for so long. It's just so important to me that we all kind of do that work to consider who we are and consider what we believe and consider the life we've lived and what has shaped us. And it's very much the spirit of the album. And when it comes out, I would just hope that people would, listen to it and kind of do more than just kind of listen to it in passing, in the middle of the workday, but would pour themselves a drink and sit by the fire and listen to it, and not about giving myself attention, but in a way of hopefully catalyzing something personal and self-reflective, because that's why I do any of this is I tease about kind of my narcissism, but it really is I have such a deep desire for people to engage with themselves,
honor themselves.
Yeah. And I'm really vulnerable on the album, hopefully in an attempt to facilitate people kind of being vulnerable with themselves and taking a look at their journey and their history. So that's all I want. I don't need any more follows or any more shows.
Right.
If a few people did that and found something new, then it would be a win for me.
Really?
Yeah. 100%.
It's an altruistic effort, sir. It really is.
Oh, well, that's very kind. I don't know. I have a strange kind of we're in the deep thoughts part of the podcast now, but I feel a certain kind of responsibility. I think because I spent so many years pushing a certain kind of ideology when I was in ministry.
Yeah.
I feel a certain kind of responsibility to continue to encourage participation in
outside of theology.
Yeah, outside of theology, exactly. a sort of penance maybe, which makes it sound like that's the only reason I do it, which is it's not, but
Right.
it's part of it for me.
Well, it's parallel, right?
Right.
You're getting to the same river via a different creek.
Yeah, exactly. And I think in a world of like content and strategizing and all that stuff, I'm like, it took so much effort to try to make this stuff kind of purely separate from that, and it's important for me, whether it's my stuff or anyone's stuff, that people engage things that help them kind of step back, and take a look. So I hope that happens for people wherever they find it.
I'm going to promise you right now that after all the singles come out and when the whole album comes out, I'm going to pour a glass of wine and sit next to the fire in there and listen to the whole thing by myself. I'm going to listen to every word.
Thanks, man. That means a lot. That's really, really special.
If that's what you want people to do, I'm going to do it.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Deal.
Dude, thank you so much for coming. I'm glad to know you, man.
Thanks, dude.
And it sounds like we might get to hang together a little bit more.
I'd love that.
Yeah.
Love what y'all are doing.
Thank you.
Keep it up. Keep giving Knoxville that spotlight.
Got to.
Awesome.
Got to. Thanks, Tyler.
Thanks, man.